Right, it's 8:01. You're very welcome back to OTB AM. If you've just joined us, you've missed a great interview with Eddie Irvine that Joe did last night, and really great stuff. Sorry, Eddie Jordan, talking about Eddie Irvine. Loads of great stuff from Eddie Jordan about working with Ayrton Senna and some of the greatest drivers that have ever graced the Formula One track. You can get that wherever you get your podcast. The best place is the Go Loud app, or of course you can get it on offtheball.com/podcast. It's in our highlights reel, and you can subscribe to our highlights reel. Loads of great stuff there coming your way. It is 8:02 this morning, and we say hello and good morning to Owen Sheehan. Owen, how are you getting on?
Very well, Ger. What's the crack?
Well, the sun having no alternative shone and nothing new. What's the crack with you? Nice evening yesterday.
It was beautiful. It's every evening seems to be a nice evening at the moment. Maybe it's actually been terrible weather and we're just appreciating getting outside more. And this is just actually us. This is actually human psychology that has changed and not actually our climate.
We're like the prisoners in Shawshank getting that couple of hours on the roof that time with the beers. That's what every afternoon when you get out for your walk within the 2-kilometre radius is like.
And also similarly to Shawshank, if it is raining, you're kind of like screaming up at the skies saying, thank you, God, for these beautiful raindrops on my skin because I'm actually outside my front door.
All right, on that note, you had an idea. You were watching Quiz. Is that what the series is called at the moment? That I see a lot of people... You're obsessed by Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I didn't realise this.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I've watched... I'm particularly obsessed with the Major Charles Ingram story. The documentary Major Fraud that was on a few years ago, years and years ago at this point. I think I've watched that about 10 times at this point. Maybe it's at a certain time in my life where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire comes along and you're completely overawed because you're a child by this whole television event. And I just couldn't believe it when somebody had actually cheated it back in the day. I was like, how on earth has this happened? So yeah, I've been a big fan of the whole Charles Ingram story. So obviously big pressure on this TV show when I saw that they were actually making it. And it's kicked off 2 nights ago. Part 3, the final part, is on tonight. Michael Sheen plays Chris Tarrant. Right. And it's pretty good. Like you've got Richard Cooper playing an ITV executive, and the boardroom scenes are actually really good. Like in last night's episode, they're sitting around the table saying, I think we've actually been cheated out of it. I think we've been cheated out of £1 million. Is this fraud? Do we go to legal? Do we go to the police? What happens? And then the first plane hits the Twin Towers, and you kind of forget how this was all on the 1 week, and they actually have to stop their meeting about how they're going to get their £1 million back because ITV needs to go on air to actually broadcast news about 9/11. So that's the sort of timing that's in it, all true, and it's pretty good. Like those scenes in the boardroom, the aftermath of it seems like it's going to be exceptional television, especially tonight, the trial of Charles Ingram. But of course, Michael Sheen played Brian Clough in The Damned United, and you kind of think to yourself, what other sports scandals could look good on the small screen?
A fictionalized version, or what do they call these? A dramedy? No, that's a mix of drama and comedy. What are these things called? Biopics, but they're not. It's not a biopic because it's not the life of any of these people. So
yeah, I'm not sure what the exact. It's certainly not a dramedy anyway, unless like some of these things can sometimes be so bad they are good that they end up being a dramedy. But this, I don't think, is actually a dramedy. It's just a drama, is what I would call it. I was just kind of like, I was thinking like Michael Sheen obviously has kind of done 2 things extremely well at this point. He's done Brian Clough really well. His Chris Tarrant is on the button. His accent is outrageous.
Really?
Close your eyes. Oh, it's amazing.
He did Frost Nixon.
Yes, he did Frost. Yes, sorry, that was the other one he did. So he's pretty good at this. Like I'm sure even the great impressionist that is Richard Cooper is looking across on set and is like, this guy is very, very good at Chris Tarrant. And he I think sometimes I'm not sure if you watch The Crown. Like they're even when the way they look, it is absolutely spot on. And perhaps you don't have the appearance quite nailed on. Like Charles Ingram, for example, in the show looks nothing like him. But what can you do? His wife looks identical. Chris Tarrant, kind of, but Sheen has the voice off to a T. I was thinking about it. I would love to watch a dramedy. I think a dramedy actually would be the way to do this. Of the US Postal team. You could completely invent a load of absurd dialogue between Lance and his boys, and it would actually be hilarious. Now, I was just settling for just a regular drama until he used the word dramedy, but it turns out Michael Sheen is actually the same height as Floyd Landis, so he could potentially slot into that
Wow.
role. That's the one thing I did this morning was Google the height of Floyd Landis and Google the height of Michael Sheen. It checks out.
What height? Let me guess. Are they like 5'9"?
5'10".
Right. Wow. In my head, for whatever reason, Floyd Landis is a big man. Like just, but obviously a lot of these cyclists aren't. Docudrama. Is that what it's officially called, or is Well, that's
that
what Tommy
docudrama?
says. That's what he's screaming at us here on our Google Doc that we use to produce the show. 087 9180 180 is the number to WhatsApp if you've got anything that you'd like to see docu-dramatized or real events based on a true story that they put up at the start of it. Okay, I wasn't even thinking globally. That's a brilliant idea. Like you could pitch that idea right now to producers in Hollywood or Netflix and say, here, look, you're right. Look at all the evidence you have, and you just get your actors to watch a bit of tape of, like, there's one of the Lance documentaries where he's like reading the Sunday Times, and he's reading a piece by David Walsh in the back of a car. Like, if you dramatize that, everybody would go, I mean, this guy's too much of a comic book villain. Stop that. That's way over the top. And then you could split screen it and go, and you could that would be really good.
And you would need to, like, you'd get Walsh and Kimmage played as well. Like, did they play, like, Kimmage might play himself.
Well, they've already made this movie. They've already made
Yeah, of
Seven Deadly
course.
Sins,
Sorry.
didn't they?
But
Chris O'Dowd was David Walsh in it. I haven't seen that movie.
totally forgot.
But we're talking about a TV series here, so like, and specifically about Lance being a dick, essentially, as opposed to the US Postal era where they're getting away with it. What am I on? I'm on my bike. I mean, again, nobody will believe it. He's going to make an ad where he's like playing up the fact that he's taking drugs by saying he's not taking drugs.
You forgot about the key line there. It's, what am I on? I'm on my bike. What are you on? The way he points it back on the audience afterwards is with the big payoff for me from that particular nightcap. Like, when I'm trying to think of these, it's actually a hard task to do because in your head it's like Saipan. It's like, no, I'm going to think of something that's not Saipan. You just have that kind of devil on your shoulder just screaming Saipan at you whenever we think about these sort of things.
The devil on your shoulder is Kenny the Dad, who on YouTube has just said, Keane and McCarthy saga, lads.
Well, I think that would almost be like it would be 10 seasons. It would be a mammoth undertaking of Keane versus and then you could like do a spin-off of Keane versus Alex Ferguson, and whoever gets that gig as Keane, maybe one of the young offenders perhaps gets the gig, then you just have this massive payday for years and years and years because of all the different sagas. Like I was thinking to myself, could you do like a haunted or a haunting version of the 2007 Rugby World Cup, where it's just random Irish rugby players wandering around empty corridors of industrial estates, and they hear sounds and they look around and it's actually just another teammate, or it's the haunting sound of an Argentinian or something. Just a really creepy, almost based on The Shining, except it's rugby.
Yeah, you totally could, where they're reading email forwards about how, of all the scandals that they're allegedly involved in and weren't involved in at the time. Not the most dramatic TV that you're ever going to create.
No, as it would all be based on tension, and then the payoff is Ireland losing a rugby match. So it's not the. I won't be going to Hollywood with that particular idea. So I've only got one so far, but I would love to hear from people at home as to what would work. Like it's such a hard thing to actually do well, because your first thought, like as you say, is like there is almost a comedic element to actually dramatizing real events.
The 1998 Offaly versus Clare saga, where the referee blows the whistle a little bit early. I mean, if you looked at the comments underneath our Mount Rushmore about Offaly yesterday, somebody suggested Jimmy Cooney, who was the referee, and had details of how he didn't send Michael Dignan off because it would have ruined the game and Clare were winning anyway. And sure, at that stage he didn't need to, and then he blew the whistle up, and the sit-in happened on the pitch, and then the match gets replayed and Offaly come back from the dead and win that and go on to win their second All-Ireland in a couple of years and become a team of all-time legends. When you think actually that Clare team would have won their third All-Ireland because they were the best team in the country. Like, there is definitely, a multi-layered, the sliding doors moment of the referee blowing the whistle at the very start, and then you kind of reverse back into the happy laughter of childhood. And then it's
100%.
like somebody nursing a pint who, never quite recovers from the fact that they didn't win the All-Ireland that year. And there's a good, we've got the bones of something there, Owen.
100%. If you view it through the prism of a fictitious fan, you have a lot of creative license to actually create more drama on top of it. One last idea I would have for you, just given, I'm not sure, I actually haven't seen this, but obviously the English game has been on Netflix over the last couple of weeks. Somebody should make a dramatized version of Paul Rouse's book, The Hurlers, because of the amazing stories in that. Down through history, it would be a period drama based on Irish sport. I would watch every episode of it. The book itself, it could actually get you a 10-part series, to say the very least. And I think you could do worse than just adapting that for television right now.
Yeah, when we talked about it when he was in, I was like, look, this is a HBO series. That opening boat trip to New York would be the perfect opening to an amazing HBO series. What are we at? 12 minutes past 8 here this morning. There will be no Intercounty GAA Championships until July at the earliest due to, the stuff. The GAA issued a statement to that effect yesterday ahead of Friday's remote special congress, which is expected to hand the management committee powers to alter the structure of the hurling and football championships if and when they resume. The GAA stressed they would like to finish the Allianz League games of importance, i.e. so that we'll know promotion and relegation for next year, and permit club activity upon any resumption. Meanwhile, the Ulster Council last night cancelled the start of this year's minor football championship. They say it will be played as a straight knockout in tandem with the senior championship if that actually happens. In soccer, Dundalk manager Vinnie Perth has expressed his unhappiness over the way an approach was made by the FAI for his assistant Rory Higgins, who's set to become part of the Ireland backroom team. Higgins previously worked with Stephen Kenny at Oriel Park, and Perth says he will leave it to his own board of directors and the FAI to sort the matter out. Mike Ashley may be finally on the verge of selling Newcastle for $300 million to Amanda Stavley's PCP partners, which are backed by a Saudi Arabian sovereign wealth fund. Ashley took over Newcastle in 2007. Obviously, his tenure has been marked by a strained relationship with the club supporters. Any deal would have to pass the Premier League's owners and directors criteria, but no doubt it will do because Amanda Stavely and the PC partners are actually the front for this. So I would be very surprised if the Premier League were all of a sudden to develop a backbone and decide that they couldn't have it. And Daniel Wanru has become the latest Kenyan athlete to fall foul of anti-doping regulations. He won the London Marathon in 2017, but he's been suspended for irregularities in his biological passport. Coronavirus definitely screwing up a lot of people's drug plans, given that they were supposed to be coming on or going off drugs at the moment in preparation for the Olympic Games. So, spare a thought for all the dope cheats out there who don't know when they're supposed to be doping. They're going to come back and they're not going to look very good, or else they're all going to get popped straight away. What a tragedy that would be. 14 minutes past 8, here's what's coming up on the show this morning. If you have just joined us, you've missed a brilliant interview with Eddie Jordan that the lads did last night. We aired that at 7:30 this morning. Sports page is coming your way right now. Summer soccer, we're going to talk about that. Ben Higson is the Irish swim coach. He's going to talk to us a little bit about his off the couch and the type of stuff that elite athletes are getting up to at the moment, and maybe some lessons for the rest of us who are on our couches about how we can get off our couches. That's coming your way at around about 8:50. And then the OTB Culture Hall of Fame with Now TV. Stephanie Preisner is our guest today. And Owen, not only are you the office bore, you are an office bore. Oh, no, sorry, I got that the wrong way around. Not only are you an office bore, you are the office bore, particularly the US office. This is like something that you've been plaguing us to talk about for months and months at this point. The US office is actually the thing you like most in the world.
Yeah, it's my favorite television show by some distance. I think it's the best comedy ever made. And like, if you, in terms of all the great television I've watched, if you ask me, would I go back and rewatch The Wire? Would I rewatch Breaking Bad? Or would I rewatch The US Office? I would rewatch The US Office at a heartbeat. That is how highly I rate it. I hate to say it to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I feel like I'm just ditched that after like 15 minutes here this morning. But I'm sorry. I love The US Office so much more. It's the most important television show in my life. I love it, and I'm so happy Stephanie Preisner has picked it for our Now TV OTB Culture Hall of Fame today. So it should be a good piece later on. And
what we give you with one hand when we indulge your ability to nerd out, and that we take with the other, and we made you watch the 2005 All-Ireland football final for the first time since 2005.
Yeah, not nice. Sitting up on the concrete block, the concrete slab at the back of the Nally Terrace in 2005. The last time I've watched that game in full was indeed live in 2005. Of course, all the television stations have overplayed Peter Canavan's goal time and time again. It gets way too much airtime down through the years. But outside of that little moment, I don't think I've seen any other part of the game until this week.
And it's absolutely sensational. So we're going to talk about that today, and tomorrow we're going to settle the argument about which team was the team of the decade, and the answers to Roe. Well done. Congratulations, Owen, on getting that correct. Time for the newspapers.
OTB AM.
We're going to start this morning with offtheball.com. Hilarious to work with, but infuriating. Eddie Jordan on Eddie Irvine. Great stuff about how he hired a personal trainer essentially to try and get a bit of discipline into Eddie Irvine. But Eddie Irvine would be coming in from nightclubs or getting out of bed late in the day and not physically matching his talent. So he wasn't, no upper body strength, and according to Eddie Jordan anyway. And he still managed to have a pretty good career, but nowhere near the career that he could have had, according to Jordan. Loads of other good stuff on offtheball.com this morning, including that story about the GAA and their championships postponed at least until July. And so whether or not this is possible in July or some variation of it is possible in July, Luke O'Neill certainly was suggesting that there might be a possibility of under-30s playing organised sport of some sort, whether or not that would be a club championship or whether or not that would be some kind of new competition that is opened up for this year where they don't give out the traditional title, so it wouldn't be your senior club championship or your intermediate club championship. It would just be an under-30s club championship that the teams could play, and so they could have some sport. And we're talking about a graduated return to normality here. And look, I don't know, a lot of people will be like, no, if my 40-year-old can't play, then it's not the real thing. And it's like, okay, but then everybody has to take a little bit of pain in what's going on here. What have you got for us, Owen?
The Irish Independent this morning leads with a photograph here of Alex Lee, Ireland's trailblazer. Lee says extra year not a burden to his Paralympic dream. He's got a remarkable story. He's been speaking to David Kelly there. He's a former Mervyn United winger who had a leg amputation following a freak injury in a game 4 years ago. And he was en route to go to Tokyo this year. Obviously, that'll be Tokyo next year now at this point. Frank Roach, meanwhile, writing about the GAA and how it's facing frantic race to rescue 2020 championship. Croke Park believes July start campaign is best case scenario amid continuing uncertainty, and I think that is the key point here. That is very much a best case scenario. And then Rory O'Connor on the rugby expanded into pros could fill rugby void if travel is banned. Guy Easterby was out in the media yesterday saying how Leinster are in an okay financial state. They should be okay to weather the storm. But obviously losing a lot of money by not getting the Interpro fixture against Munster and the Champions Cup game against Saracens played in the Aviva Stadium.
Yeah, and the likelihood of those being played in the Aviva again until there's a vaccine, maybe you could sell 5,000 tickets and I don't know, are we going to give passports to people who are entitled to go to matches? Maybe we are. Maybe there's going to be like a little electronic passport that people have that they carry around that you get a little bleep that goes, yeah, I've got the antibodies, I'm grand, I can do whatever I want to do. And blessed will be the people who have the antibodies. Next up is the Irish Examiner for you this morning. So the Examiner Andrews is looking forward to brighter days ahead. This is the FAI TV interview that Keith Andrews did yesterday. Now is the time to worry about people, not games, says O'Neill. And look, absolutely. I mean, I think we all understand that all we have to worry about at the moment is the health of our nation and the people who are most vulnerable as opposed to games. But at the same time, our return to normality is going to be one of the things that is like very pressing for us as we try and rebuild the country after what's going to be the most traumatic financial shock in 300 years, according to the front page of the Telegraph this morning. So we do need to start thinking about what life is like and how we recover and the role that sport plays in that recovery from a mental health perspective, from a societal perspective, from an economic perspective. These are all conversations that we do need to be having at the same time. So,
and chances are that the last things that went from our normal life might be the first things back. One of those things was golf, and that is the lead story in the Irish Times this morning. Gavin Comiskey has been speaking to Professor Sam McConkey, medical expert, optimistic about early reopening of golf courses. Of course, it's a sport he'd probably hold up ahead of everybody else in terms of maintaining safe social distancing while also being able to play the sport to the fullest. Leinster set for a heavy financial hit if season is unfinished, writes Jerry Thornley. And you've also got that Keith Andrews and GAA stories. Ireland's call has Andrews fully focused, writes Emmett Malone. And then Sean Moran says action unlikely until July at the earliest on Gaelic Games.
The back page of the London Times is a picture of Dan Carter training at home with his dog, and it turns out his kids as well. So All Blacks great Dan Carter passes the time in isolation at home in Auckland. He's been releasing a load of videos, some of them sponsored by Adidas, some of them just on his own Twitter feed, and he's been playing cricket with his kids as well. There's definitely an opportunity here for some kids to re-emerge from this as absolute superstars. I saw a dad and a kid kicking ball yesterday, and the kid looked pretty good for somebody who was that small. I was thinking, that guy's getting like 4 or 5 hours of coaching every day from a dad who's obviously completely into a bit of hothousing of the talent. And, you know, if you're so inclined, if you're a Tiger parent, well, you know, now is your time to shine.
That is the last thing you want to be saying to any Tiger parent. Now is your time to shine.
Yeah, I'm not a Tiger parent. That's definitely not happening in our house. Thank God there's a trampoline. Well, I mean, thank God I bought the trampoline. So I guess in this case, I am God. Ashley, to sell Newcastle and $300 million deal is the main story, obviously, on the Times. And no full crowds for 18 months is the other side of that. The return of packed stadiums to football could be as long as 18 months away, which, you know, makes perfect sense. So I think everybody who's like, oh, you can't have games without fans, it's unfortunate, but we're probably going to have to just get used to the fact that we're not going to have games with full stadiums at all for a while.
I'm going to the UK Independent next. There's a photograph of Sam and Tom Curran there, the English cricketers living in lockdown together. You've got Beaumont pledges rugby review, which is an interesting story here. Augustine Pichot's late bid to become the next World Rugby chairman has triggered current incumbent Sir Bill Beaumont into a vow of an independent review if he remains in charge of the global game at next month's election. And then also Melissa Reddy writing that the EFL agrees to wage deferral deal with the PFA at 25%. Player wage deferral for April has been agreed between the EFL and the PFA. The
Irish Daily Mail, their back page there is Kelly's call. Ex-GAA chief open to culling of provincial championships. So this is Sean Kelly saying no provincial championship, straight knockout, no back door. Let's get it played in if we possibly can. And then League of Ireland season may be scrapped. So one solution that the League of Ireland might have would be to scrap the current season as it stands and kick forward to a winter football, so restart a season in September, but it will be a new season, and that would be next year's season, and maybe you just go back to having a winter football season in Irish football. And there'd been talk about that anyway as a possibility, that the right thing for the League of Ireland to do was to go back to winter football. There's an opportunity for them here to do a bit of A/B testing and see, well, maybe that is the right thing for us to do, and to take this opportunity to recalibrate Irish football. Obviously it's not what anybody wants, because several clubs are going to go to the wall. Niall Quinn, it says, and the story is heading in to meet the government tomorrow to talk to them about the situation with regards to football. Obviously he's got a good relationship with them because they had put together the package, not a bailout, but it was a bailout. And so it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens in that interview, that meeting tomorrow.
The Mirror this morning leads with Suaria. Pogba says, I've never heard of him. I don't listen to pundits. And then Graham Souness, speaking to David Jones and Jamie Carragher yesterday, said, oldest thing comes to mind, show me your medals. Then their headline on the GAA is, July please, I'm on my knees, championships on hold until midsummer at the earliest. And a flog of the time is the headline on Mike Ashley reportedly selling his stake in Newcastle to a Saudi Arabian buyer.
Yeah, did you get the reference?
A flog at the time or July please, I'm on my knees. Which one do you want to touch on?
You give us both of them there. Explain both of them first.
Well, we can start with Monday's July, obviously a classic of the genre.
Give us a blast. I don't know it.
You don't know? Well, jeez, I'm not going to give you a blast Monday. I would.
Come on, it's early in the morning. No one's watching. 24 minutes past 8 here.
After doing our Offaly Mount Rushmore yesterday, he is from Offaly, isn't he?
Yes.
I don't think we can completely undo all our great work with the people of Offaly by me singing Monday this morning. Maybe one day, but like the week that's in it, I would not be a big fan of doing that.
All right, and what about the other headline? What was that?
I can't remember.
Flogging the Tyne.
Look, you know what? Go on, patronise us all. Come on.
I'm sorry, this is just revenge for the little somebody screen grabbed my face when you were talking about various rap artists with Dermot Kennedy last week, and I was like, Owen put you up to this. Whoever this is, it's Fog on the Tyne. It's the single that was released. I'm gonna stay there, camera. Don't move. I'm gonna do this.
Oh, the Gaza song.
Can I? Am I too close? Am I too close? There you go. Fog on the Tyne. Camera left.
Gaza.
Fog on the Tyne. Yeah, it's a Gaza song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you get it.
Well, like, I mean, it just took a little bit of a push towards Gaza. Well, if you just said Gaza in the
Newcastle,
first
Gaza, it's perfect. And then so the back page of the Irish Mirror, which is the same. July, please, I'm on my knees, and Sue, you've already done that one, sorry. So, so after the Mirror, it's supposed to be the Sun, which I do have here. The Sun is, oh, Mandy, you came and you bid without taking, but Mike sent you away, oh, Mandy. Now you're back to save tune from breaking. Oh, they need you today, oh, Mandy. That's the front cover, back cover of the UK Sun, and the picture of Amanda Stavely closing in. And is it Stavely closing in.
I heard Stavely mention the match of the day last time she was in the stands. Yeah,
with Mike Ashley, and Newcastle's owner lowers price for Saudi-led consortium. So she's the front for a sovereign wealth fund for the Saudi ruling family. Back page of the Irish Sun is oh my July. It seems like the headline writers had a little bit of a conflab and they were like, go Monday, yeah, okay, let's go Monday. And then Keith let the good times roll, and darts will do nicely for now. Live sport is set to return with a living room darts extravaganza.
Nice. When is this happening?
Michael Van Gerwen and co will play each other from their own homes across the internet with prize money up for grabs. Get ready to watch a lot of darts. We'll announce a major in-your-house development. There's a 42. Am I going to watch the darts? Will I watch the darts now? This is the test, really, Owen, isn't it? No is the answer.
Why?
Just to let everybody know. It will lack the atmosphere of a crowd, and it won't be the production level that we're used to. We have a master plan to involve the entire tour on a real extravaganza of darts.
You laugh as if like the production quality on darts television isn't amazing. Like it's obviously the thing that has sucked so many people in. They've done such a good job.
It's going to be shite. It's going to be like on someone's phone with bad quality, and everybody's going to go, is this what we normally watch? Why do we watch this?
The pubs are closed. They can't be Brexit down the pub anymore.
Be careful what you wish for, darts aficionados, because when you see it stripped of all its pomp and circumstance and whatever it is that draws you in, you're going to realise that this is like people playing darts against each other.
It's going to be gripping edge of your seat television. You don't want to miss it.
Sunsport understands groups of 4 players play each other in a round robin, with the winners progressing to the new tournament. The event, which is like to start on Friday, will be open to the 128 PDC Tour card holders and give hard-up players the chance to earn money during the lockdown. Sports back, baby.
That's what I'm talking about. I might have to give up the horse this week to actually watch the darts instead. It's going to be might have to dual screen. Might actually have to dual screen in the month of April 2020. Who would have thought it? Back page of the Irish Daily Star is Suaria as well. Like again, another Suaria. Pogba claims ignorance in Sunes spat. It's always the greatest put down, isn't it? It's like literally, who are you? I've never heard of you. It's a go-to for anybody in that sort of position. And League of Ireland could have late renewal. Meanwhile, as you already mentioned, and that GAA story, July start at the earliest. Saudis are back in tune, as well as the headline that Mike Ashley has agreed in principle a deal to sell to a Saudi Arabian-backed consortium.
Yeah, so that, and then the Irish Star obviously has the Suaria headline as well. And GAA July start at the earliest, and League of Ireland could have late renewal, so that would be the end of that. What have I got next? I'm supposed to have the Telegraph ready. Good man, slightly slow. Here we go. Yes, it is on the back page of the business section today. EFL clubs to propose 25% player wage deferral in bid to buy time. So this is the lower down clubs. Obviously, a lot of Irish players at those clubs hoping to keep their jobs. And Saudis agree $300 million deal for Newcastle. So that's the Mike Ashley story there. And also, the European Tour chief warns of prize fund cutback. So prize funds for the golfers, only to be expected, will end up being cut in all of this as well. On, you get the Guardian first?
Yeah, Tour de France off, but hopes high it could be held in August. So Tour de France obviously being moved from its current situation. And Ashley in advance talks to sell Newcastle for £310 million. And Amanda Stavely, who tried to buy club in 2017, fronting Saudi-backed takeover bid.
A comment in the biography of Mike Ashley, he could be played by Dracula, sucking the life out of everything. The Irish News, the last one we have for you here this morning, is McAvoy grants welcome, but clubs need rates relief. So GA clubs struggling with a lot of different things, insurance, all kinds of things as well. And somebody, is that protect yourself at all times? I don't know which box that is. Could it be Barry McGuigan in Clonus? Could it be, it must be somebody in Belfast. So, and then Play before July, highly unlikely, says GAA. So I think everybody accepts that at this point. And there'll be more news on that across the day as well. And obviously on Friday, we'll get to hear what the Special Congress decides. Summer soccer for the FAI. These are the top 5 stories that we're covering for you this morning. Summer soccer for the FAI, GAA fixtures, Pogba against Tunis, the Newcastle takeover, and Dennis Irwin has a full feature piece on him by Matthew Side in the Times, saying he's the most underrated footballer of all time. So it was the Rocky statue in Philadelphia, apparently, on the back of the Irish News there for you this morning. So I should have recognised that, given that we did a whole piece on the OTB Culture Hall of Fame just 2 weeks ago around Rocky 3, where the statue is unveiled, and we had a big hoo-ha about it. So somebody put a mask on it with somebody walking by wearing a mask. Everybody in America wearing masks. We've been asked to do so in Ireland. Not really that happening that much. Were you wearing a mask, Colin, when you were out and about yesterday?
No, I wasn't. Maybe I need to actually get one. I saw that there was a handy tutorial online by some woman who showed you how to turn a pair of ankle socks into a makeshift mask. I'm not sure if you see that, so might get moving on that today.
Ankle socks, as in like the little tiny ones that you wear when you're pretending you're not wearing socks?
Yes, exactly, those ones.
Right, okay. Top 5 stories. Summer soccer for the FAI. Ultimately, summer soccer has led to better pitches. It hasn't led to a massive sea change in how well the league has been doing. But I'd like to see the current FAI administration have an opportunity for pushing summer soccer and see how that worked. It would be, I think, a missed opportunity if they automatically go back to a winter season here and stick with it for the next couple of years.
You're saying it's the current situation is where they should be.
Well, it hasn't been. You wouldn't say that it has seen the massive surge in growth in the league that it was supposed to deliver. It was supposed to be a silver bullet that rescued football in Ireland. But certainly the pitches are better. They lose fewer games to postponements and all that kind of stuff. Having said that, there are definitely parts of the season where the game goes away for a couple of weeks just as they build up momentum. So it's not perfect. The situation is absolutely not perfect, and it goes away for quite a long time, it feels like, over the winter. But maybe with promotion and the new TV deal and the new administration who are very focused on driving the success of the league, summer soccer would be something that might work for Ireland. But I think we saw some of the schoolboy leagues decide fairly unilaterally that they were going back to winter soccer. And once the whole thing becomes disjointed, then that whole plan of the local underage leagues all having a League of Ireland club at the apex of the pyramid, once that starts to break down, then again, the whole thing needs a bit of a rethink. So it would have been very interesting to see what the new administration were going to do with the league playing in summer. That's not going to be possible this summer. So this might be an opportunity for them to reset and go back to winter. And it's just, that's how we play here.
Yeah, like obviously the irony of having the League of Ireland as a summer league is that on pretty much every given year, the league's start is disrupted by bad weather because it kicks off in March, February, and like obviously this year you had that situation in Dalymount where RTE actually couldn't televise a game because it was just unsafe for a camera to be up so high. You had terrible conditions around the grounds on that particular weekend. So it's not immune. It's a football season. You are going to have parts of the season where you're going to be playing in glorious sunshine and parts of the season where there's terrible weather. It's just such a long season, no matter what league you're in. And I just wonder if like winter soccer, as in being in line with the rest of Europe or the majority of Europe, is the way forward. Because if you are looking at yourself honestly and saying that we could potentially be keeping players for a little bit longer before they go to England, or perhaps, I don't know, selling players to teams in England and then getting them back immediately on loan. Like, does a club in England want to loan a player, for example, to a club that is not on the same calendar that they are? Like, do they not want them taking along at pretty much the same season, go into the off season at the same time as their parent club, for example? I know this is only a very small facet of it, and of course the promotion of the game here is a far bigger thing, but it is still an aspect, and I can definitely see the positives to the League of Ireland falling into line and being more uniform with, say, the English Football League and the Premier League.
Next big story that everybody's talking about today is GAA fixtures and what's going to happen. On Friday there's going to be a special congress held remotely. I'm just trying to think now. There was some major Scottish organisation held a remote conference yesterday, which ended up being hacked by inappropriate content, and they had to apologise for it. A Dublin GAA club had to apologise for a hacked Zoom call. So you want to make sure that nothing untoward happens when Special Congress is on. Obviously, I'm sure they have better systems in place for it. But anyway, that was just a little aside. I'm sure it'll be fine.
How did that even happen?
I don't know. I think some of them, they published the wrong Zoom link. And if you have that Zoom link, you can then go in and start doing stuff. Certainly, the kids' Zooms with their classmates, people realise that if you are the host, you can then mute different people at different times, which led to hilarity. And I think certainly some of the remote classes that have been happening, there were kids muting the teacher at various stages. The ones who you would expect, like the assholes down the back of the class who were like ruining it for everybody. And this now, they were literally officially ruining it for everybody, where the teacher would be kind of like... So that they are all real life scenarios that I have seen / heard about directly. So anyway, let's assume that it all goes to plan. One of the things that struck me about the rugby authorities at the weekend was that they're talking about everything. They're talking about putting everything on the table. They're talking about like a home and away Six Nations next year. They're talking about only having interprovincials and internationals if rugby comes back at the end of the year. I mean, I think that would be on the assumption that you would be able to have crowds, because there's no point in really playing those games. Maybe there is some TV revenue to be had from playing games at the end of the year. Like, what tournament would it be? Would they just be November internationals, Ireland versus England, played on Sky potentially, so that there is some revenue coming in behind closed doors? What would that game look like at Lansdowne Road? What would that game look like at Twickenham? So what did strike me was that they were literally putting everything out there and almost flying kites to see what the response from the public was going to be like. A few GAA kites being flown wouldn't be the worst thing, and I think they probably have been flown. I think that whole idea of a knockout championship, and then when that happened, people were like, oh, the club game is like 97% of all participants, so you've got to bring that back first. And it's like, well, let's do what we can here. Everybody just needs to calm down a bit and like not be angry about the fact that there might be inter-county games on in advance of there being club games, or there might be more value to having those games for the association generally. If they can get some revenue in from those games, from a TV perspective, from a sponsorship perspective, that might actually allow the organisation to continue to survive the way it has done.
Like, I think that there's also has to be a possibility that you just play the club games at the same time as the inter-county games, if we're in a place to actually play safe sport, and just get everything in. Just play them at the same time. Like, it's, instead of picking one or the other and complaining about the club championship not being in the spotlight, just play our club championship. Every county board just needs to get behind this and be appreciative of the fact that we might actually have football or hurling by the end of the year, and just play it. Like, because it's a better situation than saying to yourself, well, the club is the kid in the corner again, and the intercounty got the go ahead. You cannot blame the GAA if they want to play the intercounty season, and that they will prioritise ensuring that the intercounty GAA competitions actually get played, because it is such a big cash cow for them. Even the specifics of intercounty GAA are so important year on year. Like they get bogged down if Mayo don't make a certain game in Croke Park because they miss out on so much revenue. So imagine the sea change if they actually don't get any intercounty football or hurling played this year. It is a massive deal for them. So I certainly would have no problem whatsoever with them prioritising the intercounty game first off, and then actually just delegating to the clubs, saying, listen, we want to have an played at some point early next year. Will you be able to get your houses in order to actually play off your championships, even if it is straight up knockout and there's no round robin nonsense or backdoors in your county championships? Just play everything off, and if they happen to run concurrently, so be it. But I would still have my doubts about whether or not we will see even that before the end of this year.
Okay, we've kind of gone too long on this, but how would you feel about an under-30s championship as kind of floated yesterday by Luke O'Neill? Like, there's, you know, and I picked under-30 just as an example. It's clearly science fiction, right? But or an antibodies only championship if an antibody test emerges. How is this something that we need? And maybe it's not for the Sam Maguire. Maybe it's not for. Maybe it's for like a, you know, no trophy, or it's a championship that's played in championship conditions but without full teams. How does that sound?
It's maybe a sort of first step you take, almost like why not make it a return to the Railway Cup or start amalgamating teams for a completely made up competition? Because as far as I can see, if you start making this an under 30 competition or whatever it is, as long as you get into the realms of science fiction, as you say, the competition loses all credibility entirely. So no, like you cannot play for Lee McCarthy or Sam
Okay,
Maguire in
so
those
you
conditions.
don't play for that, but there's
Yeah,
like they're
but
wearing
like I'm saying,
county
you could do.
jerseys.
Okay, like, but like, why not? Like, okay, put them out there. But like, I mean, why not just turn this into something that's truly exhibition football and hurling?
Because you'd like a bit of competition in it, no? I mean, the players who win it will celebrate at the end. You want them to celebrate at the end. You want them to be trying their very best, so that when we tune in and when we're listening to it, we're like, and when we're talking about it, there's jeopardy.
But like I would still contend, and I know this is kind of changing the conversation a small bit. I would still contend that is that really a safe way to proceed? Like, are you going to be instructing every single player to stay away from vulnerable people? Or
No. They have to have the antibodies. They have to have the antibodies, or they have to so it has to be completely safe to do so. That's obviously, you have to take that as read, right? But that there's a cut-off point. You either have an antibody test and everybody's had the test, is allowed to play, and then players are added to the panel as the weeks go by, or they've decided that the under-30s are going to be allowed to go out and about, which was one of the other suggestions from Luke O'Neill yesterday, that we get them back out and let them all get the virus and move on with their lives. And they're going to be the ones who run the country, Owen. Time for you to step up, buddy.
To be honest with you, I just want to go to the pub, but I can do that as well if you want me to.
That might be doing your bit. By the time the summer comes, you going to the pub might be the most. It would be the equivalent of you being first over at Flanders, first over the top.
Yeah, like, I mean, if there's a poppy in my name 100 years down the line, then absolutely. I don't like. It sounds. I'm not going to lie. What you're saying sounds utterly bizarre, and I know that you know that yourself.
Yes.
If it actually is,
and Luke O'Neill said it sounds bizarre. It sounds like science fiction, but like it's just So you're saying no to all of this, unless it's.
No. I'm not saying no to it. I'm just admitting that before I actually said it, this is a good thing, just to appreciate how wild this idea is. Of course we would take that. Of course that's a good idea, because it is a safe solution to actually having some sort of live sport. Like, if we're actually going to talk about the importance of sport to what it will do to people who are sitting at home watching the games, then of course getting something on the pitch would be important. Of course, actually having some version of an All-Ireland Championship on your screen would be an important thing for the people of Ireland, as long as it is 100% safe to do so. Not only is it safe for the players involved, but it is safe for their families, and that they are not going to be carrying the disease and are therefore contagious. But what you were saying is that would not be the situation. Can we achieve that before 2020? I certainly still have my doubts, and I would also have my doubts that the official advice is going to be, let's proceed with organised games pre-vaccine. But as we heard yesterday, some health experts actually view that as not the full stop in all of this. That the vaccine is not necessarily the end game.
Yeah, exactly. If there's groups of under 30 allowed, what are they allowed to do? If there's groups of up to 50 allowed, what are they allowed to do? Could you have club matches where there's nothing but the officials and the two teams? I mean, maybe you could. Right. So with the other, very quickly, Pogba against Souness. This is Pogba biting back, doing exactly what you'd expect him to say. Who is Graham Souness? Like, Graham Souness must be actually kind of happy about this, because it's like an opportunity for him to come back again. It's like the perfect story that never stops.
Yeah, the Souness Pogba relationship is an interesting one. Like, Pogba asked on a podcast a little while back about all of this, and it's like, I don't know who he is. And then Souness comes back yesterday saying, like, the oldest thing of football comes to mind: put your medals on the table. Despite the fact that, of course, Paul Pogba is a World Cup winner. Like, I think, like, Pogba perhaps could have gone even harder in on Souness. Like, I think it's a meme at this stage that Graham Souness actively dislikes Paul Pogba as a footballer, and will always call him out on things that he said. And I think he's probably like he sometimes perhaps goes OTT in his criticism of Pogba, just in terms of singling him out consistently. And maybe that's us giving Pogba a free pass, because he's absent quite a lot of the time. And maybe to someone like Graham Souness, absence is the very worst thing that you could accuse a footballer of.
Right. A reminder: this Friday, boxer Ray Moylett is going to do 1,000 press-ups in an hour to raise money for HSE frontline staff and Pieta House. It's going to be live across the Off the Ball channels. You can find Ray's GoFundMe on his Twitter page, and we're going to have more details about that tomorrow. There's a bit of jeopardy involved in this because he just about managed to squeak it out. He's done it once before, but it nearly killed him. So, you know, that's the bit where you're like, I've already done this, why would I do it again? He's going to do it for charity. He's going to do it for the HSE frontline staff and Pieta House. Check out his GoFundMe page on Twitter. It's Ray Moyles on Twitter. It is 8:46 this Wednesday morning. We're talking off the couch next with Swim Ireland head coach Ben Higson. But first, no live sport, don't worry. Virgin Media Sport are airing over 10 hours of classic games each weekend to celebrate some of the greatest moments in sport. Last night, David McWilliams joined Joe to look back on Leeds United in the Champions League.